Hello mabuhay! This is Antonio here with a new rant episode, and this time, in my new voice, as mentioned in my previous salute videos uploaded a few weeks earlier. And in this video, I am going to rant about something that I believe deserves much more thoughtful discussion, shaming teenagers and adults simply because they enjoy things that were originally made or marketed for children. And to be clear, I'm actually talking about preschool books, children's television programs, DVDs and other physical audio-visual media, plushies featuring children's characters, children's movies at cinemas, live shows and events, and even openly discussing children's media on social media. And yes, I'm talking about people who see someone enjoying these things and immediately say, "You're too old for that, grow up, that's for babies," or even worse, turn someone's harmless interest into a personal attack. Before we go any further, let me establish something important. This rant is not saying that every person should consume every kind of media regardless of context. Age ratings, appropriate boundaries, responsible behavior, and respect for other people still matter. What I am criticizing is the assumption that simply enjoying something designed for younger audiences automatically makes a teenager or adult immature, irresponsible, or somehow inferior. Those are two completely different things. And if we're going to talk about maturity, then we need to understand what maturity actually means. So without further ado, let us roll up to the main rant. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, light up! Oh my god. This is one of the worst and most bizarre types of rude behavior I have ever seen or heard of in my life. Seriously, why have we reached a point where someone's harmless interests are apparently being treated as an invitation to insult, embarrass, or humiliate them? How did enjoying a children's book, watching an animated program, owning a plushie, or attending a family-oriented event suddenly become a reason for somebody else to attack their character? For example, shows like Sesame Street, Barney and Friends, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, Winnie the Pooh, Little Einsteins, Bluey, PJ Masks, Caillou, Sophia the First, Jake and the Neverland Pirates, Blue's Clues, Little Bill, Paw Patrol, etc. And I'm not talking about constructive criticism here. I'm talking about deliberately shaming people, making fun of them, calling them immature, questioning their intelligence, or acting as though they should be embarrassed simply because they enjoy something associated with childhood. That kind of behavior is unnecessary, disrespectful, and completely out of proportion to the situation. If someone isn't hurting anybody, violating anyone's boundaries, or neglecting their responsibilities, then why are you making their personal interests your problem? You don't have to understand their hobby and you certainly don't have to participate in it. But there is absolutely no justification for turning someone's harmless enjoyment into a personal attack. With that said, let's begin with one of the most common situations, preschool books. Let's begin with one of the most common situations, preschool books. Suppose a teenager or adult owns a picture book that was originally intended for preschoolers, kindergartners, and early elementary school-aged children too. Maybe they grew up reading it. Maybe they appreciate the illustrations. Maybe they collect children's books. Maybe they're interested in children's literature. Maybe the book reminds them of a particular period in their life. But here's something else that needs to be said. This doesn't only apply to books they remember from their own childhood. It can also apply to books that are newly published today, or books that were released only recently. Someone might discover a new preschool book because they appreciate its artwork, storytelling, educational value, characters, humor, or simply because they find it enjoyable. And no, that doesn't make the person stuck in childhood. Why should that automatically become an opportunity for ridicule? A book doesn't suddenly become worthless because the reader got older. And a newly published children's book doesn't suddenly become off-limits simply because the reader wasn't around when it was originally released. People reread novels from their childhood all the time. People revisit old movies. People listen to music they enjoyed years ago. People collect memorabilia from their childhood. But people can also discover completely new books, movies, music, characters, and franchises that were created after their childhood and still legitimately enjoy them. Nostalgia is one reason people return to children's media, but enjoyment doesn't always have to come from nostalgia. Sometimes you simply discover something new and like it, and that is perfectly reasonable. So when somebody says, "You're too old for that book," my question is simple. Why? What exactly is the harm? Is the book attacking somebody? Is the person hurting anyone by reading it? Is somebody's safety being compromised? If the answer is no, then why are you treating a harmless interest like a moral failure? And then we have plushies. This one especially gets treated as if owning a plush character is some kind of character defect. Someone buys a plushie of a cartoon character they like. Suddenly somebody says, "You're an adult, why do you have a stuffed toy?" Well, why not? A plushie is an object. It can be a collectible. It can be decorative. It can represent nostalgia. It can be part of someone's fandom. It can simply be something that person thinks is cute or interesting. And there are so many grade school-age children's and preschool-oriented franchises that have merchandise and characters people can legitimately appreciate. We're talking about franchises and shows such as Barney and Friends, Sesame Street, Bluey, PAABO Patrol, Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, Caillou, Thomas and Friends, Teletubbies, The Wiggles, The Backyardigans, Dora the Explorer, Go Diego Go, Little Einsteins, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, My Friends Tigger and Pooh, Doc McStuffins, Sophia the First, Jake and the Neverland Pirates, Bear in the Big Blue House, Kindergarten, The Musical, The Lion Guard, Winnie the Pooh, PJ Masks, Super Y, Arthur Cocomelon, Baby Shark from Pink Fong, and Pocoyo. And there are also franchises with broader or older audiences, such as Lilo and Stitch, Frozen, Hannah Montana, The Amazing World of Gumball, The Powerpuff Girls, and Phineas and Ferb, among many others. And that's only a small selection. A person could own a plushie of Bluey or Bingo, a Barney plush, a Sesame Street character, Peppa Pig, Paw Patrol, Daniel Tiger, Thomas, Dora, Mickey Mouse, Doc McStuffins, or any of those other characters I just mentioned. So what? Does owning a plushie of Bluey automatically make someone immature? No. Does owning a Barney plush automatically mean someone refuses to grow up? No. Does having a Sesame Street character sitting on a shelf somehow tell you everything about that person's personality? Absolutely not. And here's another important point. It doesn't necessarily have to be a character they grew up with. A teenager or adult can discover a new preschool character today and decide that they like the character enough to purchase a plushie. Maybe they discovered the show through streaming. Maybe they saw the character at a store. Maybe they encountered the character through social media. Maybe they liked the character's design. Maybe they enjoyed the voice acting, animation, music, or storytelling. Maybe they simply thought the plushie looked nice. That doesn't automatically mean anything negative about them. And the same principle applies whether the character was created 20 years ago, 10 years ago, or only recently. You don't need a childhood connection to justify enjoying something. The fact that the character was designed for preschoolers describes the target audience of the media. It does not provide a complete psychological profile of everyone who happens to enjoy that character. That's an important distinction. A target demographic tells you who the creators primarily designed the product for. It does not create a universal rule saying that everyone outside that demographic is forbidden from appreciating it. So before you look at somebody's plush collection and start making assumptions about their maturity, intelligence, or personality, maybe stop and think for a moment. You're looking at a plushie, not a psychological evaluation. And if the person is responsibly enjoying their collection, respecting other people's boundaries, and going about their life without harming anyone, then their plushie collection is not your excuse to shame them. Now let's talk about consuming children's media on social media, especially here on YouTube. Maybe a teenager watches clips from an old preschool show. Maybe an adult follows an official account for a children's program. Maybe someone posts about a cartoon they grew up with. Maybe someone discovers a brand new children's series and starts discussing it. Maybe they make fan art. Maybe they review episodes. Maybe they share their favorite characters. And there are countless examples of the kinds of movies and shows people might legitimately discuss online. We're talking about programs and franchises such as Sesame Street, Barney and Friends, Bluey, Peppa Pig, Paw Patrol, Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, Caillou, Thomas and Friends, Teletubbies, The Wiggles, The Backyardigans, Dora the Explorer, Go Diego, Go, Little Einsteins, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, Doc McStuffins, Sophia the First, Jake and the Neverland Pirates, Bear and the Big Blue House, Kindergarten, the Musical, Arthur, Pocoyo, Winnie the Pooh, Lilo and Stitch, and Frozen. And that's only a small selection. Someone might post a clip from Bluey, someone else might discuss a favorite Sesame Street character, another person might share artwork inspired by Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, someone might review a recently released episode of a preschool series, another person might talk about a movie such as Frozen or Lilo and Stitch, and suddenly somebody appears in the comments saying, "Aren't you too old for this? Why do you care?" If somebody is peacefully enjoying media and respecting everyone around them, why does their interest give you permission to insult them? Social media makes this even easier because people can see one post and believe they understand someone's entire personality. They don't. You might see somebody post a picture of Bluey, Barney, Elmo, Mickey Mouse, Winnie the Pooh, Blue from Blue's Clues, Dora, Thomas, or another children's character and know absolutely nothing about their education, responsibilities, achievements, personality, or values. Yet some people will still make a sweeping judgment based on one interest. That's not maturity, that's stereotyping. And remember, these interests don't necessarily have to come from someone's childhood. Someone could be discovering a brand new preschool series for the first time. They could be watching a newly released animated movie. They could be following a new children's franchise that didn't even exist when they were a child. The fact that something is newly created doesn't make it any less legitimate for someone to discuss or appreciate it. And social media can make the situation even worse when people pile onto somebody simply because others have already decided that their interest is cringe. One person makes a joke, another person joins in, then another. Before long, what started as somebody's harmless hobby becomes an entire comment section dedicated to humiliating one person. That is where people need to step back and ask themselves whether they are actually contributing anything positive. Because there is a huge difference between saying, "That's not my kind of show," and deliberately turning someone's harmless interest into a public spectacle. You are allowed to dislike the media. You are allowed to have a different taste. You are allowed to move on. But you are not entitled to humiliate somebody simply because they enjoy something that you personally consider childish. A comment section does not become a better place simply because everyone agrees to mock the same person. Sometimes the most mature thing you can do is simply scroll past. The same thing applies to cinemas. Suppose a family-oriented animated movie comes out. A teenager wants to see it. An adult wants to see it. Maybe they grew up with the franchise. Maybe they discovered the franchise recently. Maybe they appreciate animation. Maybe they enjoy the story. Maybe they're simply curious about the film. Why should they automatically be mocked? Going to a children's or family-oriented movie does not require somebody to justify their age. People watch movies for many different reasons. And there are countless examples of family-oriented movies that teenagers and adults might legitimately want to see, including Toy Story, Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, Frozen, Moana, Encanto, Inside Out, Zootopia, Lilo and Stitch, The Lion King, The Little Mermaid, Despicable Me, The Super Mario Bros. Movie, Paddington, How to Train Your Dragon, and many others. Someone might go to the cinema to watch a newly released animated movie because they enjoy animation. Someone else might be revisiting a franchise they loved when they were younger. Someone else might have discovered the franchise only recently and simply want to see what it is about. All of those are perfectly ordinary reasons to watch a movie. And if someone is sitting in a cinema, watching a film peacefully, respecting other audience members, and following the venue's rules, then what exactly is the problem? The same goes for live events. A person might attend Disney on Ice, a Disney Junior live show, a Sesame Place stage show, a family-oriented character performance, a children's theater production, or another live entertainment event because they enjoy the performers or characters. They might attend with family. They might be a fan. They might be interested in the production. They might want to see the costumes, choreography, music, staging, or special effects. They might simply want to experience the event. And once again, this does not necessarily have to involve nostalgia. Someone could attend a newly created live show featuring characters they discovered only recently. Someone could see Disney Junior characters for the first time. Someone could attend Sesame Place and watch a stage production even if they didn't grow up watching Sesame Street. Someone could go to Disney on Ice because they enjoy Disney characters, figure skating, theatrical performances, or simply the atmosphere of the event. There are many possible reasons. Again, their age does not automatically turn that interest into something shameful. And here's another point. Attending an event designed primarily for children does not necessarily mean the person believes they are a child. An adult can attend Disney on Ice while understanding perfectly well that they are an adult. A teenager can attend a Disney Junior live show while understanding perfectly well that they are a teenager. An adult can watch a Sesame Place stage show while understanding that the production was primarily designed for younger audiences. Enjoyment and identity are not the same thing. The target audience of an event tells you who the organizers primarily designed it for. It does not automatically determine who is allowed to appreciate the performance, music, characters, production design, or experience. Of course, people should still behave appropriately at these venues. They should respect children and families around them, follow venue rules, respect personal space, and avoid disrupting the event. But if someone is doing exactly that, then their age alone should not be treated as a reason to shame them. If you see an adult attending a family-oriented movie or live show, and your immediate response is to mock them, maybe the question isn't why they're there. Maybe the question is why their harmless enjoyment bothers you so much. Now here's where people need to be much more precise. There is a huge difference between having an interest in children's media and behaving irresponsibly. If someone neglects their responsibilities because they spend excessive amounts of time watching television, then yes, that's a legitimate problem. If someone mistreats other people in a fandom, that's a legitimate problem. If someone violates boundaries, that's a legitimate problem. If someone behaves inappropriately toward other people, that's a legitimate problem. If someone uses a fandom or hobby as an excuse to harass, bully, threaten, or deliberately disturb other people, then obviously that behavior should be addressed. But notice what I'm doing here. I'm criticizing actual behavior that needs to stop gradually, before anything else. I'm not saying, you own a plushie therefore you're immature. I'm not saying, you watched a preschool show therefore you're irresponsible. I'm not saying, you bought a children's book therefore you haven't grown up. That's the difference between legitimate criticism and personal shaming. And this distinction becomes especially important because there are literally thousands of children's and family-oriented movies and television programs that teenagers and adults might enjoy for completely different reasons. For example, someone might enjoy Sesame Street because they appreciate its educational history. Someone might like Barney and Friends because they have nostalgic memories of it. Someone might enjoy Bluey because they appreciate its storytelling and family themes. Someone might watch Disney Junior's Ariel because they find the kitty characters entertaining. Someone might collect PAW Patrol merchandise because they like the character designs. Someone might enjoy Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood because they appreciate its emphasis on social and emotional learning. Someone might watch Caillou because they remember it from childhood. Someone might enjoy Thomas and Friends because they are interested in trains and animation. Someone might appreciate Teletubbies because of its distinctive visual style and cultural history. Someone might enjoy The Wiggles because of its music and performances. Someone might like The Backyardigans because of its songs and creative storytelling. Someone might revisit Dora the Explorer because it was part of their childhood. Someone might discover Go, Diego, Go for the first time through streaming. Someone might enjoy Little Einsteins because of its combination of animation, music, and art. Someone might still appreciate Mickey Mouse Clubhouse because they like Disney characters. Someone might enjoy My Friends Tigger and Pooh because they are interested in Winnie the Pooh adaptations, especially to see Darby, who is a 6-year-old girl host who leads in solving the mysteries. Someone might appreciate Doc McStuffins because of its themes involving medicine, empathy, and helping others. Someone might enjoy Sophia the First because they like fantasy animation and storytelling. Someone might revisit Jake and the Neverland Pirates because of its adventure themes. Someone might enjoy Bear in the Big Blue House because of its puppetry, music, and educational approach. Someone might discover Kindergarten, the musical, because they enjoy musical animation. Someone might enjoy The Lion Guard because they are interested in the Lion King universe. Someone might like Winnie the Pooh because the characters and stories have remained culturally recognizable for generations. Someone might watch PJ Masks because they enjoy superhero animation. Someone might enjoy Arthur because of its long-running storytelling and educational themes. Someone might discover Pocoyo because they appreciate its simple animation and visual style. And that is already 27 examples. But notice something important. None of those titles tells me what kind of person the viewer is. A person can enjoy Bluey and still be responsible. A person can watch Sesame Street and still be mature. A person can own a Barney plush and still have serious responsibilities. A person can read a Caillou picture book without suddenly becoming incapable of functioning as a teenager or adult. A person can watch Arthur, Thomas and Friends, Doc McStuffins, or The Lion Guard without that becoming a psychological diagnosis. The title of a television show is not a personality test. The target demographic is not a personality test. A plushie is not a personality test. A DVD collection is not a personality test. A social media post is not a personality test. And someone's entertainment preferences certainly should not be treated as evidence that they are incapable of growing up. If there is a genuine problem, identify the problem. Don't manufacture one based solely on someone's hobbies. You can criticize someone's conduct without insulting their entire identity. You can say, that behavior was inappropriate, without saying, everything you like is pathetic. You can establish boundaries without humiliating someone. You can disagree without becoming cruel. That is what responsible criticism looks like. And now I want to speak directly to those of you who make a habit of shaming teenagers and adults for enjoying children's media. What are you actually accomplishing? Seriously. You see somebody carrying a preschool book and you think they deserve to be embarrassed? You see someone with a Bluey, Barney, Sesame Street, Paw Patrol, Thomas and Friends, or other children's character plushie and immediately decide that they're immature? You see someone watching Sesame Street, Bluey, Peppa Pig, Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, Arthur, or another children's program and tell them to grow up? Are you freaking serious right now? You do not become more mature by humiliating somebody else. You do not become more intelligent by mocking somebody's interests. You do not become more sophisticated because you decided that everything associated with childhood is beneath you. And you certainly don't prove that you've grown up by attacking somebody who happens to enjoy something different from you. If you don't like children's media, that's fine. Don't watch it, don't buy it, don't follow it, move on. But why do you feel the need to make someone else feel ashamed? If you're going to criticize someone, criticize something they actually did wrong. Don't invent a moral problem simply because you don't personally understand their interests. And please stop using phrases like, grow up, you're too old for that, that's babyish, that's pathetic, or you're acting like a child, as though those phrases automatically constitute an argument. They don't. They're insults. And insults are not evidence. They're not reasoning. They're not maturity. They're just insults. And think about what happens when you repeatedly make those comments. Maybe the person stops talking about their interests around you. Maybe they stop bringing their books, collectibles, DVDs or plushies around other people because they're afraid of being mocked. Maybe they stop participating in discussions they genuinely enjoy because they expect somebody to ridicule them. Maybe they begin believing that harmless interests are something they should be ashamed of. Is that really the lesson you wanted to teach? If you genuinely believe someone needs to become more responsible, then talk about responsibility. Talk about time management. Talk about school. Talk about work. Talk about family obligations. Talk about respectful behavior. Talk about real-world responsibilities. Don't substitute an insult about someone's favorite cartoon for an actual conversation about maturity. And if you repeatedly make these comments while calling them jokes, remember that calling something a joke doesn't automatically erase its effect. You may think you're making a joke. You may think you're teaching them a lesson. You may think you're encouraging them to become more mature. But what you're actually doing may simply be making them feel embarrassed about something that wasn't hurting anyone in the first place. That's not constructive. That's not morally responsible. And that's certainly not a healthy way to communicate. Nostalgia and discovering new media. Another thing I want to emphasize is that growing older doesn't mean you have to erase everything associated with childhood. You can grow up while still remembering your childhood. You can become more responsible while still liking animation. You can graduate from school while still appreciating a children's book. You can become an adult while still owning a plushie. You can develop mature judgment without abandoning every interest associated with childhood. And again, this doesn't only mean returning to old favorites. You can discover something new. A children's show released recently can be enjoyed by someone who never saw its predecessor. A newly published preschool book can be appreciated by someone who has never read it before. A new character can become someone's favorite without having been part of their childhood. That's simply how media consumption works. People discover things at different points in their lives. There is no universal deadline saying, you may only enjoy this until your 18th birthday. That's an arbitrary social expectation, not a universal law of maturity. And even if someone is nostalgic for something from their childhood, there is nothing inherently wrong with that either. Nostalgia can be a normal part of remembering one's past. The important thing is maintaining balance. Remembering childhood does not mean refusing to move forward. Enjoying something from childhood does not mean refusing to accept adulthood. You can do both. And the same applies to newly created media. Imagine someone who is 18 or 19 discovering a children's show that was released only a few years earlier. Maybe they never saw it as a child. Maybe they weren't even familiar with the franchise until recently. They watch it and think, this is actually pretty good. Why should that automatically be embarrassing? They didn't violate a rule. They didn't hurt anybody. They simply discovered a piece of media and enjoyed it. That's normal media consumption. So what does maturity actually look like? Maturity is taking responsibility for your actions. Maturity is respecting boundaries. Maturity is being able to disagree without humiliating people. Maturity is thinking before speaking. Maturity is treating other people with dignity. Maturity is recognizing that not everybody has to share your interests. And perhaps most importantly, maturity is understanding that you don't have to put other people down to make yourself feel superior. Someone can enjoy children's media and still demonstrate every one of those qualities. And someone can consume supposedly mature entertainment while behaving terribly toward everyone around them. Someone can watch violent movies and still be a responsible person. Someone can watch children's cartoons and still be a responsible person. The category of entertainment alone does not determine someone's character. So let's stop using people's entertainment preferences as a shortcut for judging their entire character. A person who watches a preschool show isn't automatically immature. A person who owns a plushie isn't automatically immature. A person who reads a children's book isn't automatically immature. A person who watches an animated family movie isn't automatically immature. What matters is how that person actually behaves. If they're responsible, respectful, considerate, and capable of handling their obligations, then their harmless hobbies should not automatically be treated as evidence against them. If you're a teenager or adult who enjoys children's books, animation, plushies, physical media, family movies, live shows, or other childhood-oriented interests, don't automatically let somebody else's insult convince you that there is something wrong with you. At the same time, keep your own behavior responsible. Respect other people's boundaries. Respect age-appropriate spaces. Be considerate of the people around you. And don't turn your interests into an excuse to mistreat anyone else. You can enjoy something while still being responsible. You can be nostalgic while still moving forward. You can appreciate childhood media while continuing to mature as a person. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. And if someone makes fun of you for enjoying something harmless, you don't necessarily have to turn the situation into an argument. Sometimes the most mature response is simply recognizing that their opinion doesn't define you. You don't need to prove your maturity to somebody who has already decided to judge you based on a plushie, a book, a DVD, or a television show. Let your actions speak louder than their assumptions. At this point, I would like to welcome a special guest, a friend from Pasig City, who has a few words to say directly to everyone watching this video.
Andito na ako. Ready na ko.
Oh, there you are, Ethan. Can you tell the viewers watching about this bizarre behavior?
Magandang araw sa lahat ng nanonood. May ilang bagay akong gustong sabihin sa iyo ng direkta, lalo na kung kabilang ka sa mga taong mahaligi manghusga o manlait ng teenagers at adults dahil lamang sa mga bagay na kanilang kinagigilwan. Pakinggan mo ito ng mabuti. Kung nakikita mong may isang tao na nagbabasa ng preschool book, nanonood ng children's show, may plushie ng cartoon character, nanggolekta ng DVDs o iba pang physical media, pumupunta sa family-oriented movies o umaattend ng live events para sa mga bata at pamilya. Huwag mong agad isipin na may problema sa taong iyon. Hindi mo alam ang buong kwento ng buhay niya. Hindi mo alam kung gaano siya ka-responsible sa kanyang pag-aral, trabaho, pamilya o iba pang obligasyon. Hindi mo rin alam kung bakit niya gusto ang isang partikular na libro, palabas, karakter, pelikula o collectible. Kaya kung ang una mong reaksyon ay mang-insulto, mang-asar o manghiya, mag-ingat ka. Dahil ang simpleng panghuhusga ay maaring mawi sa mas seryosong pang-abuso kung patuloy mong ginagawa at hinihikayat ang ibang tao na gawin din iyon. At huwag mong gamitin ang salitang joke bilang automatic na depensa. Kung palut-ulit mong sinasabihan ang isang tao ng ang tanda mo na para diyan, bata ka pa rin, nakakahiya naman iyan o mag-mature ka na ga, hindi ibig sabihin na harmless na iyon dahil sinabi mong biro lamang. Ikaw ang responsible sa mga salitang pinipili mong gamitin. Kung alam mong nakakasakit o nakakahiyang pakinggan ang sinasabi mo, matuto kang umatras. Huwag mong hintayin na lumala ang sitwasyon bago mo mapaktanto na mali na ang ginagawa mo. At para sa mga mahaligimang husga sa social media, lalo na sa comment sections, mag-ingat din kayo. Huwag kang sasali sa pang-asar dahil lamang maraming ibang tao ang gumagawa nito. Hindi dahil maraming nagko-comment ng parehong insulto ay naging tama na ang ginagawa ninyo. Kung may nakita kang teenager o adult na nagpo-post tungkol sa Bluey, Sesame Street, Barney, PAW Patrol, Disney Junior, animated movies, plushies, children's books o iba pang family-oriented media, hindi mo kailangang pupasok sa comments para sabihin na grow up. Maaari kang mag-scroll, maaari kang hindi makialam. Maaari mong sabihin na hindi iyon para sa iyo. Pero kung pinili mong manghiya, tandaan mo na may taong nasa kabilang bahagi ng screen. Hindi mo alam kung paano tatanggapin ng taong iyon ang sinabi mo. Hindi mo alam kung ilan pang tao ang susunod sa pang-asar mo. At hindi mo alam kung anong klaseng environment ang nabubuo kapag ginagawa ng maraming tao ang parehong bagay. Kaya bago ka mag-post, mag-comment, mag-share o mag-reply, tanungin mo muna ang sarili mo, may tunay bang problema rito? May nasasaktan ba? May nilalabag bang boundary? May maling ginagawa ba talaga ang taong ito? O hindi mo lang talaga gusto ang kaniyang interests? Kung ang sagot ay huli, then step back. Hindi lahat ng bagay na hindi mo gusto ay kailangang labanan. Hindi lahat ng bagay na tingin mong childish ay kailangan mong pagtawanan. At hindi lahat ng taong may different interests sa iyo ay kailangang baguhin para maging katulad mo. Kung gusto mong tawagin ang sarili mo na mature, ipakita mo iyon sa paraan ng pakikitungo mo sa ibang tao. Matutong makinig, matutong rumespeto, matutong mag-isip bago magsalita, at higit sa lahat, matutong malaman kung kailang kailangan mong tumigil. Dahil ang tunay na maturity ay hindi nasusukat sa kung gaano karaming children's shows ang ayaw mong panurin. Hindi ito nasusukat sa kung gaano kakakul dahil ayaw mong makaroon ng plushie. At lalong hindi ito nasusukat sa kung gaano mo kayang pagtawanan ang ibang tao. Nasusukat ito sa iyong karakter at sa paraan ng pakikitungo mo sa kapwa. Kaya ito ang warning ko sa iyo. Kung ginagawa mong hobby ang panghuhusga sa harmless interests ng ibang tao, tigilan mo na bago ito maging bahagi ng mas toxic na behavior online. Huwag mong gawing normal ang pang-insulto. Huwag mong gawing entertainment ang pagpapahiya sa ibang tao. At huwag mong isipin na dahil nasa internet ka, wala nang consequences ang mga ginagawa mo. May consequences ang actions mo, may epekto ang words mo, at may responsibilidad ka sa paraan ng pakikitungo mo sa ibang tao. Hindi kita sinasabihan na magustuhan mo ang gusto nila. Hindi kita pinipilit na manood ng children's media. Ang sinasabi ko lang ay simple. Kung wala namang ginagawang masama ang isang tao, huwag mo siyang gawing target dahil lamang sa kaniyang harmless interests. Matuto kang mag-control ng sarili mong reactions. Matuto kang rumespeto. At kung hindi mo kayang magbigay ng respeto, at least have the discipline to walk away instead of turning somebody else's harmless hobby into an opportunity for humiliation. Kaya bago mo sabihan ang ibang tao na mag-mature, siguraduhin mo munang ipinapakita mo mismo ang maturity na hinihingi mo sa kanila. Dahil kung kailangan mong manginsulto para sabihin na mature ka, baka kailangan mo ring pag-isipan kung ano ba talaga ang ibig sabihin ng maturity.
Thank you for that message. And that warning is worth remembering. Disagreement with someone's interests does not give us permission to humiliate them. Now, let's move on to the conclusion.
Anytime, Sir Antonio. Bye.
So, in conclusion, having an interest in children's media does not automatically make a teenager or adult immature. A preschool book is still a book. A plushie is still a plushie. A DVD is still a DVD. A cartoon is still a cartoon. A family movie is still a movie. And enjoying those things does not give strangers permission to attack someone's character. If someone is genuinely behaving irresponsibly, then criticize the behavior. If someone is violating someone's boundaries, address that. If someone is causing actual harm, hold them accountable. But if somebody is simply enjoying a harmless interest, leave them alone. You don't have to understand someone's hobby. You don't have to participate in it. You don't have to like it. But you should still respect the person behind it. Because ultimately, maturity isn't measured by how quickly you abandon everything associated with childhood. It's measured by how responsibly, respectfully, and thoughtfully you conduct yourself as you grow older. You can grow up without becoming cruel. You can become mature without becoming judgmental. And you can move forward in life without pretending that everything you enjoyed when you were younger, or everything you discover now, has to be abandoned simply because someone else considers it for kids. So let's stop turning harmless interests into weapons for personal attacks. Let's stop treating childhood-oriented media as an excuse to shame people. And let's learn to distinguish between actual irresponsible behavior and somebody simply enjoying something that isn't hurting anyone. That distinction matters, period. And that's all for this video. Thank you for taking the time to watch and listen to this discussion. Hopefully this rant has made one thing clear. People should not be personally attacked simply because their interests happen to come from children's or preschool-oriented media. If you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Share your thoughts respectfully because disagreement does not have to become harassment. Remember, you don't have to like what someone else likes, but you should know when to leave them alone. Thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. May God bless you and may His light continue to shine upon you now and forever. Glory to the Father and to the Son and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.